Welcome back. Today I'm going to take you on a tour of this food forest project which I started 8 years ago. Now this project has not been tended by gardeners. This project was tended in fits and spurts. There were times when more went into it than other times, so it's not as advanced as you might think from a system that's this old. However, it's still remarkably productive with a good variety of fruit trees and food coming out of here. So I'm going to take you around from the front and show you what you could do even when you just have a little bit of time per week. You got some fruit trees, you got some soil, you got a little bit of backyard, and you've got patience to have a jungle. So let's go wander around. I will start from the front and I'll take you around and show you what's going on. We start here in the front yard with this beautiful tamarind tree, which is not part of the food forest proper, but it is a wonderful tree. It's very, very resistant to hurricanes, and it's also delicious. This is a sweet tamarind tree, and as you can see, it is now bearing back up in there. There are a few tamarind in there, and it's just really getting started. There were some lower branches here, but they decided to trim it up to make it a better shade tree. It's not as good for fruiting because you can't get the low tamarind fruit, but that tree is gorgeous. It was about 5 foot tall when I stuck it in, and it's a good 20 feet now, maybe a little more. But this tree will be a beautiful shade tree over time and super resistant to winds, and it also produces a yield, so why not? Here's the tamarind tree from the other side, and then in this little side yard here, this is a Canella tree. This tree has been very slow. It started from a seedling, and it's been attacked by bugs and fungus and other things. I don't know when it's going to bear, but I'm going to feed it up pretty well while I'm here, get it some micronutrients, probably expand the ring around it, give it a big area of mulch, and feed it up. As you can see, the soil here, you can't even really call it soil. This is just sand. There's not much to it. So a tree that's not getting regular feeding is going to suffer. And this tree just needs a little more love to get growing. They can actually produce in only about 3 years from seed, I've read. I think this tree is at about its 6th year in the ground, so it needs some care to get going. And here we are on the other side of the canister. Come up here and take a look at this. This is Carissa macrocarpa, the Natal plum. It's beautiful. Has very nice aroma to the flowers. Beautiful and excellent kind of a security plant. It has a lot of thorns on it, but as you can see here, it also has an edible fruit, and the fruit tastes rather like raspberries. It's not bad at all. You gotta wait till it's fully ripe and then it's edible. You don't want to eat them green. All parts of the plant are poisonous until, you know, the fruit's nice and mature and you've got something good to eat. Right next to it here is a Avocado that I planted as a tiny, tiny little plant. And it's kind of found its own now. It took a long time to get going. We did an experiment where we decided to do like a hugel culture thing underneath, and I chopped a bunch of logs and I buried them and I planted on top because I knew this tree liked moisture. But it sunk into the ground and we actually had to pull it out and replant it. It was not a good idea. It just wasn't packed in well enough. But this tree is a rainforest tree, so when it's dry, the tree doesn't grow at all. And when it's wet, the tree is really happy. And right now I can smell the kind of jasmine aroma of the Carissa right here next to the Avocado. When the Avocado gets bigger, it will produce a lot of fruit on the trunk, and it's not a very big tree. You can keep it under control, and it fruits right out of the trunk. They look like grapes growing on the trunk. It's a beautiful tree, and it will produce as many as 5 to 6 crops a year. I'm looking forward to that, but it's probably going to be a few more years unless they decide to run a hose out on this thing every couple of days to get it moving. As we come along over here, I don't have anything edible here, we just have a little bit of landscaping. But as we come around the corner, here is an acerola tree, cherry tree, also known as Barbados cherry. This tree here, this poor thing, got knocked over in Hurricane Irma, and it was a well-established tree that was really growing well, and it was tall, it was very productive, and then all of a sudden the hurricane came through and blew it over all the way to the ground, and they called me and said, what should we do? And I said, cut the entire top of the tree off, prop it back up, and see if it grows back. So as you can see, they sawed it off and propped it up. I mean, this was a good sized trunk here to prop up and recover, but they sawed the entire top of it off, and it is growing back. It doesn't produce like it used to, but it's going to be all right. I think it's going to produce and it'll come back. It's just kind of sad. It really took a beating, and I think that was a year and a half ago now. So hopefully this next rainy season, the summer, will be good for it, and it'll kind of get its roots back under it again. This tree right here is a tropical almond tree, Terminalia catapa, and I planted this from a seed. And it is producing lots and lots of almonds. My sister and I were just eating them. Christy, the yam fit girl, and I were out here picking these up off the ground, smacking them open with bricks, and inside there is a very, very much like an almond. The nut in the center of it is just like an almond, except it's a little skinnier, but it tastes very similar. Very nice tree. It gets very big, and it makes a lot of litter, and what that means is you can get lots of compost material out of it. This tree also, you can see these vines growing all over it. Those bits and pieces, those are from winged yam vines. I planted yams at the base of it. My mom went and dug up the yams, and then these bulbils here that she set aside, all these guys right here are from the, these were actually growing up in the tree. See how huge these things are? This was a very happy yam vine, and she dug some of the yams, and I'll show you that when we go around the back. But all these here can be planted to make new yams, and the yams are super productive in South Florida, and the tropical almond is a really good place for them to grow. Like, we could just plant it at the base here. And you can see there's the head of one of the yams that she dug up, and there were more. There's probably more yams around the tree, but that thing was a heck of a yam. There are still some bulbils hanging on the tree right now. That is a Dioscorea alata bulbil, known as the greater yam or the water yam. Very impressive root for South Florida, way better than potatoes. Right here I have two things growing. I don't know where this came from. Some member of the Euphorbiaceae family, it looks like. But here is Haitian basket vine that we planted. You can cook the greens on it and use the vines for baskets, as you would think. And then right here, this is sleeping hibiscus, which has edible blooms. The leaves are edible for animals, but they're a little too coarse for us to enjoy. But you can just break these off and stick them into salads, and they have a nice honey-like flavor from the nectar inside. It's kind of nice. It's also pretty ornamental. It's usually just used as an ornamental. Now let's go into the backyard. Right here is my chocolate pudding fruit tree that Dad and I planted. This was such a poor, sad little tree when we put it in. Oh, that one's about right there. See that? Comes off, it's nice and soft. That is a good fruit right there. You pick them, it's better to pick them a little early and let them sit on the counter rather than ripen all the way on the tree, but this is still good to eat. This tree has been chewed up by the little Sri Lankan weevils. They chew around the edges of the leaves. They don't usually kill the tree, but they're kind of a pain in the neck. Got a lot of fruit on it. It's been in the ground for 6 years, I think, at this point. Now it's just getting soft. You can pick that and bring it inside. But I'm gonna leave some of them on here because I have a tour coming up this next weekend, and I want people to see them on the tree, and maybe we'll pick some right off and eat them during the tour. You can tell it's a member of the persimmon family. Whoop, it just falls off in my hand. Look at that. Looks like a persimmon, doesn't it? Except it's black in the inside. It tastes somewhat like chocolate. It looks more like chocolate than it tastes like it. But if you imagine a chocolate mousse, it's very much like that. A very light chocolate flavor with a little bit of fruit undertones to it. It's very nice. This mosaic work here, my dad and I did years ago when the septic system switched over to the sewer system, and the yard had a different level to it because of the digging that had to be done. And so we went along, and I always wanted to do a mosaic, so Dad's like, hey, we're gonna cast some concrete, let's just do a mosaic on top of it. So I did, with just whatever stuff I could find that was around. Here are the yams that my mom dug. You can see how they look kind of different than the ones that you see me digging in my homestead. They have the roots all stay intact, whereas when you're in the clay, the roots on the outside tend to just break off in the clay. But this is a lot of calories right here. This is probably a 12-pound root, something like that. And it's not even the whole root, part of it's still in the ground. That's a very nice crop. Mom was very happy to dig them. This tree right here is a avocado with gigantic fruits. At least the fruit that I planted the pit from was gigantic. This has not borne yet. It's had some issues with insects and disease, but it's still hanging on. I'm gonna clean it up while I'm here and we'll see what happens. This tree has been in the ground too long to be this small. It's been like 7 years. It should be much bigger, but again, the soil has nothing in it. The tree hasn't died, but there's nothing in the sand to feed it, so it's gotta, you really kind of gotta stay on top of a seedling like this. Some trees do better than others, such as this coconut right here. I planted that one a long time ago. 24 years ago I planted a coconut. Underneath the coconut we have katuk, Sarpus androgynous. It's a nice leaf crop, sometimes called star gooseberry, and you can guess why. It has berries on it. The berries are not actually really edible or anything, but it's used as a leaf green. It looks like gooseberries. And we have more of the sleeping hibiscus here. It's really nice stuff. And there's another katuk behind the palm. We had some other perennial greens in here. They died out over time, and then the ones that wanted to be here stayed here. So the katuk and the sleeping hibiscus, they just took over the area. My brother-in-law, Dario, made this nice swing set for back here. It's a pleasant place to sit. Here is the very productive mango tree. This tree has been fantastic. Borne hundreds of pounds of mangoes so far. Mom planted this one actually right at the beginning of the project, before it was officially a food forest project. This right here is a chaya tree, which is taller than me. This one also got blown over in the hurricane, and they pulled it back up and let it grow. You could prune these things down to keep them small, but they do make a pretty cool looking tree, and it attracts a lot of butterflies. The blooms are very attractive to them. This right here is a Indian curry tree. It smells just like curry. Murray Konigi, Konigii. Use it like a bay leaf, but when you crush it, it smells delicious, like garam masala. So underneath here, there's just random stuff that has started itself. The mother-in-law tongues, or some ferns. Occasionally Mom comes through and rips them out and composts them, and then stuff comes back. There are orchids growing on the tree that bloom now and again. It's nice to see. Right here, there's another katuk that planted itself. They start to self-seed over time, and then of course, right here is the mulberry I showed you guys the other day. This tree is the dwarf ever-bearing black mulberry. Highly productive, very beautiful. Children love it, birds love it. Now, as we come through here underneath, we got these little walkways. Mom was watering her little orange tree today. These are Mexican sunflowers that we put in here. This is a nitrogen fixing tree. I don't even know what it was. I just planted beans from a pod because I figured, why not? All this stuff here I'm going to chop and drop, so you'll see a difference. Any of you who are coming to my workshop coming up on the 16th, if anybody's coming to the workshop, you'll see that I'm cleaning this whole area up and putting some mulch down. This is a key limequat tree, which has produced a lot of key limequats. It stays very small, but it produces a lot of fruit. A lot of pies out of this tree. Here we've got our star fruit. There's some star fruit up there right now, but not a lot. It's in between cycles. This is the dry season right now. This tree has been a fantastic success. Hundreds of pounds of fruit over the last few years. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful tree. Very productive, and it's a very nice, sweet, not tart variety. Down here is a little grumichama. I planted this years ago. It refuses to grow. I don't think it's any bigger than when I planted it. That thing is pathetic. Really pathetic. I'm ashamed of it. I'm not even gonna show you anymore. This is the Gainesville mulberry variety. Either the 5th Street or the 6th Street. I can't remember which street because I never saw the original one, but it's the Edible Plant Project version. And I am going to come out here. I know you guys are like, oh no, he's got rosary peas all over the fence. These things are just such a common weed down here. They show up everywhere and they come in before you know it. If you're not paying attention, suddenly you've got them everywhere. So I've got to clean these out. When we were kids, we played with them all the time. We called them ladybug eggs. And we would fill pill bottles full of them, like grandma's old pill bottles. It's great. They were like one of the most poisonous plants, but you have to chew it to die. So I've got to clean all those things off the fence before the nieces or nephews have trouble. Most people don't know they're poisonous, so the kids just play, and you know, I don't think any of the rest of my family there is really up on their botany, so I'm just gonna come out and clean these things up and get them out of here so they aren't such trouble. It's a little chaya over here. There's not much. This tree's been here a long, long time. It doesn't do much because it's overshadowed by the tithonia, which needs to be taken down. Right here is a Suriname cherry. The Suriname cherry tree is very big compared to how it was a tiny little seedling when I planted it, and it is finally blooming all over, so it should be making some cherries very soon. I look forward to that. I never seem to catch it when it's actually making fruit. I think it's an improved variety. I don't know. It might be the black variety. Now there's just mostly brush in here that needs to be cleaned out and chopped up and dropped and everything. There's a cashew hiding way back in there. There's a little orange tree that was recently planted. There's a cassava that really should just be dug up and replanted because it's been in there for years now. It's just kind of become a cassava shrub. So that's what we have coming around the back here. This is it. And the amount of food that's coming out here, considering how little work goes into this area, how a lot of it is just wild, the amount of food is astounding. I mean, thousands of calories of yams, hundreds of pounds of star fruit, hundreds of pounds of mangoes, and not all the fruit are really in production yet. I mean, the Barbados cherry out front, before it got knocked over, was producing a huge amount of cherries. It's like a perpetual ever-bearing one, so it was always had cherries on it. You could always just go by and pick a handful. I'll show you one more thing, so I can see it through here. Right here, this is a moringa tree, which has just been allowed to grow up. See that pod hanging out there at the left? These trees here, they end up in omelets and smoothies and salads and all kinds of things. And my mom hung this bird feeder that I made. Yeah, birds like to come and steal out of it, particularly the grackles. They go crazy over that stuff. But that moringa tree there, we could cut that thing down and let it go, you know, let it grow back again, and you can get a bunch of new leaves off it, but it is kind of a pretty tree. And then under here, there's one of the orchids that my mom has just let grow wild down here. Very beautiful. Anyhow, I thought you guys might appreciate seeing all the stuff that's going on here. This is one of my grandma's old lilies that mom planted after grandma died. Brought them over here. They're kind of scattered here and there through the food forest. I got bananas and other bits and pieces, but we're gonna clean it up, do some mulching, and I'll keep giving you updates on the project over time. As the trees get bigger, it's really amazing to see which ones love it and which ones are total wimps. Some trees will just thrive on neglect, other ones won't. You can really build a much more intense and productive system if you work it hard, but even if you don't work it hard, like my parents had a lot of other stuff to do, it just grows back here, and a lot of the trees have taken care of themselves and continue to produce. So thanks for watching. You can find more on this project at thesurvivalgardener.com and other food forest projects that I've helped with, and I'll catch you guys next time. And until then, may your thumbs always be green.